Hello, it is Diane with Diane's BlueHeartsandButterflies.com, and I am making some more cards with the Give It a Whirl dies. They are in the 2023-24 catalog, annual catalog, and they can be used with so many different stamp sets and sentiment stamp sets and everything else. So the primary pieces that I am using for the card that I'm doing now is the front panel, the designer series paper I cut out with this, and then the wheel I cut out with this, and then the window that I created for this card is the circle. I also used the scallop circle for the decoration on the outside of the card. So this piece, the scalloped circle, I put there, and then the wheel turns and shows different parts. And I used the Silly Goose stamp set that is also found in the catalog for this one. Another great one that would be good to use was the new Hey Chuck. Would be a great one to have the faces showing through on the front for that. So let me go through what you'll need to put together this card. The measurements are over on my blog. Oh, and another one that I did use, now that I think about it, I used this label die that's in the Give It a Whirl dies to create a strip that I stamped the sentiment on, and then I die cut this with the one piece over here, and then I just cut off this other end so that it would be straight on this side. So that is another one of the dies. So I started with a base. This is Calypso Coral. It's 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. And then I used my bone folder to burnish that edge. I have a piece of cardstock for the inside. This is 5 1/4 by 4. And you can stamp your sentiments and images on this piece for the inside. The wheel, I cut out a piece of 4" by 4" thick cardstock, and then I die cut the wheel out of that. A piece of designer series paper. This one is retired, but you could use any kind of designer series paper that you have. And for this one, I cut it out at 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and then I used the front panel die to cut this out, and it just had a very small border that it actually cut off. So there's that piece, and then I cut some strips to go for the around the word. So the word die I cut out of white. This is it was approximately started out as 3/4 inch by 2 1/2. Then this is a retired piece of cardstock, but it went with the paper, and it was Mango Melody. You could use anything that coordinates with the designer series paper you have. And this piece is 1/2 by 2 1/2, and then a piece of petal pink. Again, you can use whatever coordinates with your paper. This one is 3/4 by 3 inches. I have a little 1" circle of designer series paper, and I pierced a hole using the pierce mat and the take your pick tool with the piercing tool attachment, and I just pierced a hole about in the center of that circle, and that's part of the mechanism for the wheel. I also, like I said, cut out the scallop circle. So on these, you could cut however you want to have edges, different edges on the cards. These ones for my example, I cut one at an angle and then another one at a flag. You could do them however you want. In order to do a flag end on just using the snips, you take your snips and you go about in the middle of that edge and you cut in as far as you would like to have that flag end go. Then you go from the corner to the top of that piece, and then the opposite corner to the top of that piece, and then just pull those little pieces out and you have a little flagged end to match that one. And then this one I just kind of cut off at an angle. It's probably easier to do from the corner. And just cut it off at an angle, and that's those pieces there. And then of course you'll need a brad. That's what makes the whole thing work. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and glue these strips together. And you could even take some linen thread or a piece of twine or whatever you wanted and tie around the end of this piece before you stick it to the front of the card. Or you could just use gems or sequins or whatever you want. So that is the front for that. I'm going to go ahead and stick the scalloped circle. I'm just going to use little kind of dots, so I don't want to have too much to hold this on. I always use too much white glue. You're going to want to be careful that you don't get your hands all in it. And this one actually goes on the outside or right at the edge of that stitched circle that's created by cutting out the window. That's something else I forgot to mention on this. When you're cutting out your front, it creates a hole kind of right here. If you're very good and you can do it all at the same time, this actually fits that little raised ledge there, fits inside the hole here, and it holds it in place. So if you want to and you're able to, you laid your designer series paper down, and then you laid, if you want to lay that down, and then when you finally get it laid down, kind of just lift up that middle and put this in there. You can cut them at the same time. It was a little more beyond my abilities at the time, so what I did is I just took and lined up the hole and cut this circle out after I cut the front of the designer series paper. Now on the wheel, just to make it easier for me, when you cut the wheel out, it does kind of leave an impression of this kind of spoke part here. Some people call it a peace sign. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this card was inspired by Wanda Pettijohn that I saw on Pinterest and YouTube, and one of them is the one that kind of gave me some of these hints and tips, and I can't remember which one gave what, so I'm giving credit to both her and there's another video I did that I kind of used the idea that Sharni, what was her name? Sharni, Haynes from Australia, and I liked both the ideas, or all of the ideas that they shared. So what I did was, where I could see the spoke, I lined that up on my grid paper with a line, and then carried that line through the center hole here, and then I just lined up this piece, because this is kind of where it's kind of in the middle of where that spoke is. So I did lightly with a pencil kind of go inside that, and then because this is a circle and I wanted to know where it's going to be showing, I also went through and lined up this so that I could create where the circle was going to be. And then I took and stamped the images in here. Let me get my, because I did take and put some of this, do some of this ahead of time. There's that part. This one goes over here. Alright, so on this particular stamp set, it was a little bit harder for me because they were larger images on the stamps, so they fit a lot bigger. I chose to use this one with the frog, this one with the balloon, and then I wanted only one of these in here. So what I did was I created some masks. So this is the stamp that has the two geese together. So what I did was I created a mask for the one goose that I didn't want to show. This is using, we've used these masks several times. I lined this up where the circle, so like on this one where I had the circle, before I did that, I did want to not stamp over onto any of the others, so I created just a mask so I wouldn't go over that line. And then I put this kind of in the middle. Might have to bring this one over a little more because I just don't want to get that second duck on there. And I'm creating, it just makes it easier for me to see where I'm trying to stamp. And then I wanted to keep that part from showing, so I created a mask. And I'm kind of keeping it down in the lower part of this side because I wanted to use from the Hey Chuck, I wanted to use a cupcake in his hand instead of this fist bump. And so I may need another, because I just don't want to get anywhere else. So I kind of line up this other duck. And then that keeps the head and this other one down here. Alright, move that out to the side. I didn't quite get my, oh, and I don't want to do that. So, because I don't want to re-stamp it and make a mess, I'm going to freehand this, because it really doesn't matter. It's just the wings part to create the hand. And I can even redraw and create my own little hand. There's always ways of fixing things. So once that part's done, then I take, this is from the Hey Chuck, the little birthday kit cake image. Oh, and again, I don't want to have too much outside of that circle. So I'm going to just try to get this cupcake onto that hand. I probably should have just let the cake go over, but I don't want it to be too much. And then, because I don't want it to be free-flowing body, I did take and just close off this bottom edge. So that's kind of what I was doing to create this. And then you color it and however you want it. Or you could use other stamps. This one was a little more complicated. And then just make sure that you, after you've gotten done with all of your coloring and everything, to go back with your eraser and a good eraser and erase your lines. So let me put this off to the side and we'll go ahead and work on putting this together. So, over there. I'm also going to go ahead and put the labels here onto the front. Turn that around. If you wanted to have your linen thread or whatever, you'd want to do that first. Alright, and then we have the inside piece. So a silly goose told me it's your birthday, and I put sending gaggles of good wishes. There's also one in there that is really cute, and it says, and this silly goose forgot, which is a lot of times what I really need to say. And you just put this in on the inside with the border. And then we're going to do the same thing we did on my other one that I did with the playing in the rain. To hide the brad and also to give it a little more free-flowing, what I'm going to do is just run the brad through the wheel and then through the cardstock circle. Open up the prongs. You don't want it to be too tight or too loose. And then you're going to use some dimensionals, one on each side of that. You don't want to take those off yet. What I'm going to do is line up where I think I want this to go. I even need to go down a little. I'm just looking at the images as I roll it. Yep, so that's kind of right where I want that to be. So I know that it's not going to need to be there. I'm using the adhesive foam strips. I just don't want to put anything where the wheel is going to be. go up a little bit on the sides over here. These I'm going to put up here. I just don't want it to be where it's going to interfere with the wheel at all. Just cutting the edge, because it's adhesive strip too. Now you're going to leave those there. You want to just double check that you didn't move where you wanted this. I think I moved it. Just want to make sure your images all show in there. Okay. And I want to have it out far enough so that it's easy to turn on there. So now that I've got it where I want it, I'm going to hold that together, remove the backings from just the circle, and then on my card front, just hold this. I want to kind of have it, lay it out so that I have that border where I want it for my card front, and then you just push down around that circle to get that on there, and because it's raised it goes a little better. And then you're going to take your backings off of your strips. You could just use Stampin' Dimensionals for this as well. And then again, I want to make sure that this is lined up in the window where I want it and around the edges where I want it. And I want to have enough of the wheel on the side so that I can grab that and turn it. And then you've got your little pictures inside of here. And then you have your card. So I hope that you enjoyed this project, that you could see other ways of using the Give It a Whirl dies with so many of your other stamp sets and dies, and however you want to. So this particular card created more of the images in here with the sentiment. My other Give It a Whirl one that I did with the turtle had more of the messages in the window, and the scene was created by the images. And I hope that you enjoyed this, and that you will go over and check out my blog. Again, it is dianesblueheartsandbutterflies.com, and the measurements for this will be over there. If you like this, I hope that you will click the like button and you will share it with others that you know. Also, if you'll subscribe to my channel and click that little bell icon, you'll be notified each time I upload a video. I try to do those about once a month. I connect them to my blog, and if you like any of the products that I did use that is not retired, I hope that you would shop with me and get your products through Stampin' Up. I really enjoy their color coordination, the durability, and all of the different stamp sets and techniques and ideas that they have. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you again later.